speak. Jamie is a journalist, and was a journalist, and he's now managing director of a company called aHUS, and he's going to talk us about involving and establishing patient support groups and the mechanisms by which we might do it. So, Jamie, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and it's my pleasure to be here today, and I've been incredibly moved by some of the stories I've heard. So hopefully me and my colleagues can work work together to make a difference to the aHUS community. As Tim said, I have a professional background in politics and media, and I run a political campaigning consultancy in Westminster, and I also sit on the board of Rare Disease UK. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is establishing an action group or campaign group for aHUS, which we preliminarily termed aHUS Action. So what am I going to talk about? Well, firstly, why a campaign group? Why do we need one? I think Tim's actually already covered a few of the reasons why. Some case studies of what's happened before, how different groups have worked and different outcomes. And then I'll come on to talk about or think more about what aHUS Action could potentially do, what our objectives might be, and what we might be looking to achieve. And then lastly, how do we involve the whole community? So firstly, why a campaign group? Well, the NHS, as I'm sure you're aware, is under severe financial pressure. Every Secretary of State for Health is told when they get the job that basically resources cannot keep up with demand. The government has presently asking the NHS to save £20 billion worth in efficiency costs, and the NHS recently had the lowest spending settlement since the Second World War. So the NHS is under severe financial pressure. It's also going through a massive structural reform programme. You'd probably be aware that the NHS is very much in the news recently as it's been, as the way it's been structured is being totally overhauled. Which has huge implications. And really it comes back to the point that politics and politicians, love them or loathe them, they matter. They matter to us all. But the good news is that, as Tim said, is that the government is considering investing in a new designated national service for aHUS. One of seven applications on the table, and also, as we've heard, there's some new treatment options coming through. But, and it's another but, investment in services is not guaranteed. The minister has to make a decision based on limited resources, and that's where we are. And also, other patient groups will be fighting for the same funding as well. So it's certainly not a given that the government's going to invest in a new aHUS service, nor in therapy. And as I say, that's why politics matters really. So let's look at some case studies of what's gone before and sort of parallel situations. And rarer cancers has a lot of parallels with aHUS. 10 years ago, there was very limited NHS services, and in response to that, a campaign group called the Rarer Cancers Foundation was established to try to do more for the rarer cancers community. And basically, they succeeded in making rarer cancers an important public and political issue. They made sure that it was forefront in the minds of politicians, and they communicated the needs of the community very clearly in Parliament and in public. So much so that by 2010, general election, the race was on by the Labour and Conservative parties to make some kind of announcement to improve services, to do something, basically. And basically, just before the general election, the then Shadow Secretary of State announced that if the Conservative Party would take power, they would invest in a £250 million cancer drugs fund to go to different PCTs to fund medicines for rarer cancers. So, politics can make a difference. A similar campaign as well, you may well remember this, was the Gurkhas Veterans campaign. And basically in 2007, the government decided to abolish UK residency rights for Gurkha veterans. There's a very high-profile media and political and indeed legal campaign that basically brought together the whole community and got the whole community working together to basically communicate why Gurkhas why this decision should be abolished. There's a lot of cross-party pressure from MPs. MPs from all parties were putting pressure on government ministers to change their mind. There was a debate in Parliament, and that debate, and after that debate, there was a vote, and it was the first defeat by Gordon Brown's government in a vote in Parliament. And basically, the following day, the minister had no choice but to go to Parliament and announce a U-turn on the policy. So, yeah, a really good example of how people can work together and how politics matters. So let's think about aHUS action in a bit more detail, and let's think about what the objectives might be. And I think, obviously, the first one is to unite us all so we can all work together and for the greater good. Also, it's to profile and represent the needs of the community with MPs and ministers. And then really, sort of the ultimate objective really is to secure support and investment from government for services and treatment. And that's, I guess, that would be the overarching objective. Although we also have heard today some issues that are also important, such as research, such as access to financial services, such as a common position on genetic testing, all of which we can, a campaign group can work together to develop for or to represent the needs of the community. And the structure, so let's think about how it might be structured. Well, firstly, it needs a constitution. It needs some kind of legal governance that will basically dictate how it functions and how it works. And then, secondly, it needs an executive committee. And really, this is obviously the committee that might run the group. And on that executive committee, we would hope would be representatives of the different sort of areas of the community, such as the researchers, the clinicians, the patients, etc. And then a secretariat to implement the activities that the executive committee want to forge ahead with. And so what are we going to do? What might some of the activities be, so we can put pressure on the ministers to secure investment in services? Well, firstly, what we'd like to do is basically meet some MPs locally in Newcastle and really start to ensure that MPs and politicians start to understand the needs of the aHUS community by some meetings locally here. Secondly, we'd like to establish some meetings in Westminster, in Parliament, with potentially some more senior politicians, and really communicate once again the needs of you as a community, what you require from government, and why getting funding is so important. And then thirdly, really, what would be incredibly useful to communicate our message to ministers would be to develop some data and develop a sort of a briefing or data that really sets out very clearly what you require. And the way we'd like to propose doing that is developing a survey and an associated report on the needs of the aHUS community with some recommendations for changes in government policy, which will then launch in Parliament to obviously to patients, to MPs, to government officials. And then also as well, what we're also proposing to do is to ensure that there is some media coverage, so therefore aHUS becomes a public issue, and also there's ongoing profiling and representation of the aHUS community in Parliament. And what do we want to achieve? Well, obviously we need to firstly establish an executive committee and secretariat and get the group established. And secondly, really, we want to start to ensure that there is a high level of awareness of aHUS with MPs. And there is therefore growing pressure on government via the mechanisms of Parliament. And as I said, secure government investment in a national aHUS service and subsequent treatments. And what do we need from you? Well, there's a few things we need from you, and I know Tim's covered this, but basically we really want your personal stories and experiences. It's really important that we capture as many as possible, and we use them to communicate very clearly to senior politicians and ministers, the experiences you've had and what you need. As Tim said also, right to MP, we will provide all of the materials and toolkit to enable you to do that. Also, respond to the survey, get involved, and please do respond. And then also, please do attend the report launch and also meetings in Parliament that we organise. The more that we can communicate your stories and what you've been through and some of the things that I've heard today, the more successful our campaign will be, and the more likely we are to get ongoing government support for investment in aHUS. So that's really it in a nutshell. I'm happy to obviously take questions. Thank you.
So questions for Jamie?
How do we access these templates and things?
Well, we need to work with Tim and his colleagues to send out an email, to establish some kind of database, and then we'll be in touch after we've formally established the group. But I think Tim, if you've got a database of patients and and everyone involved in aHUS, moreover.
I think the majority of you have given us your email addresses and your contact details, and so that I hope, if it's okay with you, we will now send you further information about the next steps that are proceeding. Obviously, if you don't want to receive such information, do let us know, and we won't pester you. I think one thing that we are looking at is whether later in the year we should have another meeting, perhaps in London, just patients alone, not a teaching format, but we start to give you some more feedback on what's happening in the progress of this bid, and start to interact more in terms of what you can be doing as well whilst we're doing things. So those would be the things that I would be.
Atypical aHUS.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. I've been into my doctor's surgery and I work in a pharmacy, and we have leaflets everywhere on all sorts of diseases. There's absolutely nothing around about the aHUS. Is there not a possibility that leaflets could be put somewhere to show other people what this is?
Yeah,
or to inform other people? There's nothing around.
I mean, one of the things that we will do as part of the group is establish a website and establish the materials that will. I mean, obviously it needs to be agreed by the committee, but I imagine it has some, information on aHUS, yeah.
Can I add to that? Because the website that has been developed for this meeting could be further developed to actually be, in a way, the portal for information for that it could be managed with the members or whatever. And certainly even for the template of your letter to your MP, that could be created by the organisers and posted up on the website, that you can download that at your convenience and use.
Sure, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Can you just highlight to us how you're going to influence the media? I'm thinking of for instance, the BBC website has lots of reports on health issues, often quite stories that are not successful. So when the eculizumab trial is published, how can we influence the media sites like the BBC to make sure that this appears? This is a clear message that we have made a real breakthrough in treating this disease. In other words, we want the minister to be under the sort of impression that if he says no to this, he's really turning away an innovative, successful treatment.
Yes, I mean, I think it's through personal stories and experience and experiences, and we the way to do it would be to ensure that there are features about people's stories, essentially. I think in terms of the minister, I think the media. I don't think the media is important to demonstrate that it's a public issue, but it's not the key to this. The key is going to be ensuring that there is a lot of cross-party support in Parliament, and there's a lot of noise and pressure in Parliament, which basically forces a minister not being able to decline the investment or decline a decision.
Just a kind of point, I know there's a lot of people here from Scotland, and obviously we have a separate parliament in Scotland, so when we're talking about this pot of money that, you know, supplies to rarer illnesses and things, would patients in Scotland be having to go down a completely different route, or would we still be part of that same pot? It's quite confusing, to be honest, when you're not.
I mean, what my understanding is that what Tim's been talking about in terms of a national service only applies to England, I believe, and I totally understand that your point about Scotland, and basically the Scottish Medicines Consortium appraises all medicines for use in Scotland, and I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. And reimbursement of medicines for rare diseases in Scotland is a major problem across many other disease areas, and you know, it's a very valid point that you make, and I think that, you know, moving forward we need to consider how we build Scotland into any of the campaigns that we're running.
We've heard about aHUS having a devastating effect on families, and I just wondered, from this action group, is there going to be some kind of mechanism for us as parents and people who suffer from it to actually talk as a community about our personal experiences? I think that would be a really good thing to come out of today as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly. Obviously, we can put together what the executive committee want to do, but I think that. I think this is, I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I think our focus is a campaign group as opposed to a support group, which are kind of slightly different. But it doesn't mean we can't do that as well.
What is your timescale for setting up this group and getting it working on all of your objectives?
Well, I think we need to move as quickly as possible. I mean, I think obviously today was. We were asked to put this. I was asked to put this proposal together, or this presentation together for today, and you know, it's the first time I think that certainly I've had the opportunity to meet some of the people and organisations who may be involved, and for you to hear what we're proposing to do. So basically, as soon as possible is the answer.
Having heard that, are we going to have a sheet of names to go forward from today?
A sheet of names?
Yeah, just a sheet of paper to sign up if we're prepared to be involved.
Well, I think Tim, you've got everyone's.
I mean, we've got
names.
everybody's email, so we'd be quite happy to email everybody who's signed up and obviously send letters to those people who've done it other ways within the next week to say, do you want to be part of this?
We will be in touch. There will be mechanisms that will ensure that we will be in touch with all everyone.
Hi, just a couple quick comments here. For the lady who was asking about the informational brochure, I believe the American group, the Foundation for Children with Atypical aHUS, has some literature like that on their website, so you might want to check that out. Maybe that's worth printing out or adapting to your needs here. The second point about support, I know you mentioned this is going to be more of a campaign group, but there are two places for kind of online support. There's the rarediseasecommunities.org site, which is in 5 languages, which is really for patient-to-patient, family-to-family support, which is sponsored by URDs, my organization, and NORD. And finally, yeah, I just want to mention that there are a couple other groups in Europe as well, the AIRG groups that are doing some great work for aHUS in Belgium and France. And so eventually, after this group is established, perhaps trying to link with those other groups, I think there's some definite opportunities for shared goals there. Thanks.
Thanks.
Any more questions for Jamie? Thanks very much, Jamie.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to finish by just thanking all of you for making quite long journeys up here to Newcastle and down to Newcastle as well. And I hope that you've learnt a little bit more about the disease itself and the various aspects we've described to you. And I hope you've got a feeling of where we're trying to take things in the future and how you can become involved. As I said, we will be contacting all of you who've given your emails to us in the next week to sort of lay out a plan and ask whether you want to be involved in that. And I would hope that it won't be long before we are organising another meeting, primarily of patients and their families, to sort of review where we're going, see how things are going, and that would probably, I suspect, be in London. And again, I hope many of you would be able to come to that. And it would be good to get some of the other people who aren't here today involved as well, and get them on board. So my thanks again to everybody who has presented. My thanks to all the people who've told us about their illness. It's been really valuable for us to hear them share with us what's happened to them. And just finish by wishing you all a safe journey home. Thank you very much.